All right, so Jerome Powell might actually have saved the market. So, it's December right now, and we might actually see a Santa Claus rally. Okay, so the first thing that we have to actually break down what happened with the whole entire Jerome Powell speech. He basically broke down the entire inflation situation into three separate things. Right, the first thing that he talked about is core PCE, which is basically your core prices, which is something I always talk about during your CPI. For us, we look at CPI. For myself, I like to look at CPI. For the Federal Reserve, they like to look at PCE. Basically, they are the same thing. PCE stands for Personal Consumption Expenditure. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. Kind of measuring about the same thing. Usually just talking about inflation as a whole. All right, so you talked about core PCE, aka prices of items and services excluding food and energy. He's talking about how core PCE is actually plummeting. Okay, so prices of all your other stuff other than food and energy is actually going down. Second thing he talked about is housing services, things that actually happen in the house, such as your plumbing, your decorations, your flooring, your windows, things like that. All of this are actually rising in price. Okay, so kind of bad. Okay, but hold on. Okay, because he actually say that if the new leasing are actually slowing down or even lowering, because if we look at all the house reports that we're getting, new houses are actually slowing down, and resale houses are actually going off the market pretty slowly. Okay, so if all this are actually slowing down or even lowering, in some kind of shape or form, we're actually controlling all these so-called housing services. And finally, we have to talk about the employment wages. Okay, so prior to this, the last job report that we actually had, should be last month actually, we were about 2 jobs opening for every unemployed personnel. Okay, so from the latest report that we actually had, which was from last month, November, because today's December, yeah, this month, November, I don't know, okay, November, okay, we actually got it down to 1.7 jobs opening per every unemployed personnel. Okay, so pretty good. We kind of want to get this number slightly lower a little bit. So apparently this is kind of around the expectation of what Jerome Powell wanted. And a lot of people who, okay, in case you guys don't understand how this whole entire thing works, so for inflation actually go down, effectively you kind of want to make the jobs market kind of cool down a little bit. If the labor market cools down, then that means the lower the wages would actually go down, so it will not spiral upwards. And if wages do not spiral upwards, then the prices of everything else is going to be controlled, because people are not able to spend on them and people have to lower it due to the lack of demand and oversupply. And that's kind of how inflation kind of just link all the way throughout. Okay, so right now we're looking for a trend for the employment report to go down even more. Okay, so Jerome Powell most likely, I'm not sure, because he did not really give us a general direction on this. But Jerome Powell probably wants to see 1.3 or even 1 job opening per unemployed person. So it would be best if we actually get to a 1-to-1 ratio. If we do get to a 1-to-1 ratio, then I think inflation will most likely be controlled from there on out. However, for us to actually get to 1-to-1, it would also be pretty bad, because let's not forget that if you actually get to 1-to-1, it also means that the jobs market is pretty bad to the point where you will get depression all over again. So that's the kind of the balance that the Federal Reserve has to actually go through. Okay, so just to give you guys a brief recap of the previous FOMC meeting, JPowell actually said that if he were to over tighten, he's not exactly worried, because he can basically turn on the money printer yet again, and then if he over tighten, turn on the money printer, crank out some money, and then we can just bring back money into the market. That was what Jerome Powell said in the previous FOMC meeting. However, today, earlier yesterday-ish, okay, Jerome Powell basically said that he do not want to over tighten. Okay, and he's saying that if anything, he do not want to over tighten, and to the point where he feels that it's better for them to actually slow down on the rate hikes, because that way that they will not over tighten. They do not want to turn on the money printer anymore. They want to actually get it just right. So okay, I mean that's pretty good. Okay, especially at the moment Jerome Powell says this, the entire market just basically went to the roof, everything just went up 5%, 8%, I don't know. Everything just went crazy. Okay? Everything was parabolic. It was crazy. Okay? But of course, this sudden shift in Jerome Powell's narrative, of course, from what we actually had from the previous FOMC meeting, as compared to what we have now, definitely helped fuel the market rally that we had last night. Okay, after which he kind of also touched upon terminal rate, which is kind of crazy. Okay, because he only said that he only is somewhat expecting higher than 4.6%. Okay, which is kind of insane if you actually take in the context of what this actually means. For people who don't know what terminal rates is, so the terminal funds rate is going to be released in all your SEP, which is your summary of economic projections. It's going to be coming out every 2 or 3 months, if I'm not mistaken, alongside with your FOMC. So usually you open up your FOMC PDF, you either get a 3-page report or you're going to get a 30-page report. With a 30-page report, that's where you get your SEP. So in your SEP, you probably will see this terminal funds rate. So what it actually means is by the end of that particular year, that is where they would stop increasing rates. That's how you tell terminal funds rate. Right now, he's expecting terminal funds rate to be at about 4.6%. Of course, he did say that he's somewhat expecting it to be above 4.6%. Personally, I would think that he's not even thinking about 5% at the moment. Most likely going to be at a 4.75%, 4.8% maybe. Even if you want to go as far as to say that he's thinking about getting to 5%, that's fine as well. But the thing is, currently in our entire market, we are already pricing in 5.5, and to a certain extent, even 6% for the terminals funds rate, because we keep on seeing a persisting level of inflation. So for us to actually think that, terminals funds rate is going to be at 6% isn't exactly something that's out of the world. Okay, it is quite expected to a certain extent. Okay, so for Jerome Powell to kind of expect a 4.6% federal funds rate, the market basically rallied even more. So if you actually look at your S&P, you look at your Nasdaq, you look at your Dow Jones, you can kind of see there's a huge spike. Then afterwards, another spike. Yeah, the other spike actually came from this. Because when Jerome Powell talked about the funds rate at 4.6%, everyone was like, what? 4.6%? We were expecting 5.5. Like, we were expecting 5.5, we were expecting 5.8, we were expecting 6%. Okay? And you come out to say that it's, 4.6%? Alright, time to buy. Time to buy. And that's kind of how it kind of go on in everyone's mind, or at least in my own personal opinion. So of course, because of that, last but definitely not least, I do have to also talk about the headwinds. Okay, as much as this is a ridiculously good event that has been happening, because this is finally the time that we are going to see one of the biggest pivot in a long time. Okay, in a long time. But I do not want to be blindly bullish. So I'm still going to be explaining the headwinds, the possible concerns that we would still probably would have to take into consideration as well. Okay, so for the first of all, okay, definitely one of the most important one as well, which is CPI. Okay, we're going to be getting our CPI in the next 2 weeks. I think that if we were to see something stupidly high, like your 0.9%, 1%, for the month-over-month data, I think Jerome Powell basically will come out in the following FOMC meeting to say like, okay, our terminal funds rate is actually closer to 6% right now. Market's going to go down. If he's going to say that I think it's better for us to actually over tighten because it's actually safer for us to over tighten than to under tighten and then let inflation be entrenched and then allowing inflation to go out of control. Market's going to go down, of course, and then he could also say things like we believe that core prices are actually having an inflection point upwards instead of downwards. So inflation is starting to affect prices yet again. Market's going to go down again. So there's a lot of different things that Jerome Powell can actually bring up in the following FOMC meeting, and I think that the next CPI and the next PC is definitely something for us to actually look at before Jerome Powell actually makes the appropriate move forward. Okay, so of course, ultimately, if for the next CPI, if somehow, if some miraculous way where we can actually get through it, we were to see a 0.2% or a 0.4% increase in inflation, or even better yet, if we were to start to see deflation, I can assure you that we will have our Santa Claus rally yet again. And that's, of course, what everyone is trying their best to wish for right now. So yeah, honestly, I do not want people to mistake me as being a bear, because I always talk about concerns, talk about headwinds, talk about the problems that we might be facing, the potential problems that we might be facing in the market. But ultimately, I am bullish in this market. My portfolio shows that I'm pretty bullish in this market. So of course, I am hoping for a good CPI report, and then maybe we can drink wine during the Santa Claus rally. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's kind of the summary of what Jerome Powell basically talked in the whole entire 1 hour. If you're interested to see the whole entire 1 hour video, I'll link it down in the description box down below. Okay. By the way, I will be doing a CPI expectation video next week. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be quite a juicy one as well. By the way, let's hope that we get our Santa Claus rally. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.